Hey, what's up guys? Pat here with part 4 of our revisiting set 1 leaders for Union Force meta. Today we're going to be talking about the yellow leaders finally. Hopefully all of you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know I did. This video comes to a little bit later because of spending time with family as well as testing for ARG Hartford. I should have some coverage for ARG Hartford either you know before the event or after the event, so definitely stay tuned. But continuing on with the video, we're going to keep the same format, but a little different like blue. Every yellow leader is good. There are no bad yellow leaders in this game, and that is largely because of the ugly state of the game. Cold Bloodlust. I'm sure at this point you guys are sick of this card. Cold Bloodlust is still the best card in the game, and since it's the only reactive card in the game, it's going to continue to stay that way for some while. Even with the new draft leaders, I don't expect Cold Bloodlust to go anywhere. And the problem is it's a one of a kind. There needs to be more answers in this game. I see a lot of people, not so much recently, but 2-3 weeks ago, saying things like they wish Cold Bloodlust was restricted or banned, and it's not really that simple. By banning or restricting a card like Cold Bloodlust, you let these massive unreactive combos like the Bobbity shells you see like in Vegito and the currently popular Bobbity Black run rampant. There isn't really any way to check those. And it sets this dangerous precedent where we're playing only ramp into combos and just insta-winning. You don't want a format of just all combos that insta-win. It's just not a very fun game. The solution right now is they need to print more cards like Cold Bloodlust. I know you guys think I'm crazy for saying that, but it's true. The thing is, they have to be much smarter about it. The problem with yellow right now is I feel like they assumed that everybody would be playing the color aggressively, and they designed their cards to play around that. Cards like Crusher Ball, Battering Laser, Cold Bloodlust are very high impact for very little mana, or rather I should say energy cost. And that's because they wanted you to be able to play an aggressive threat and still have some way to squeak in that last little bit of damage. I don't think they really anticipated people playing tricolor or control or tempo or any of the kind of lists you guys are seeing now. So what they need to do to combat this is print more answers so that even things that say counter Cold Bloodlust or make it so that Cold Bloodlust isn't as mandatory in certain decks, but they need to be smart. They need to restrict it to certain colors or leaders. They need to make the cost higher and a little bit more prohibitive. Like say things like, only can be played by red leaders, but it's double red. How often do you have double red and still are able to drop a body? Things like that. So that's my little side piece here on Cold Bloodlust. So let us move on to the first of the leaders, which we'll call the bad. Or rather, I should say the Scott Dashy, because he's the only one that plays this leader. So first up is Gold Frieza. Gold Frieza, this set, only really got one good card, and it's Destructive Occupation Frieza. He is very reliant on the Frieza army cards, and this is the only real one in the set that helps him at all. So right out the gate, he's only got one tool that other yellow leaders, aren't really looking at, and even then they're great with this card as well, but it's not much of a shot in the arm for him, so to speak. Talking about the leader himself, I feel like he can only really be played as yellow-green, the lemon lime Frieza list that Scott Dashy popularized, and that's largely because green covers his weakness. Yellow as a color is got the controlling extra cards, but their battle cards are only really good in the first 1 to 3 turns. They really struggle in the mid to late game, and green kind of covers that. If you were to go blue, it doesn't really offer much end game wise with this deck. You're not going to be playing Prince of Speed. It's too hard to cast it reliably, and even then it's not that big of a beater. Beerus is nice, but he only can do so much when you don't really have any reliable 5s, 6s, or 7s to close out the game. And red just offers you more of the same. It's a lot of early and mid-game drops. Jiren is pretty much the best battle card you could be playing, but again, you have the same problem at blue. You're not really getting any kind of finishers or great late game cards like Gotenks or the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. So you definitely want to be going yellow-green. The best part about this leader when compared to the other yellow leaders is his ability to cycle his deck and consistently keep energy open. And to do this, he's usually filling his deck with some nice early beaters, which solves a lot of the early game problems that Ginyu has. And because of this ability to cycle or filter through his deck, he's most likely going to have Cold Bloodlust, Crusher Ball, Battering Laser, Whis' Coercion, or whatever have you, Full Power Energy, whatever you decide to cram into the deck. Much more consistently. He's going to see probably 5 to 6 cards at the beginning of the game more than Ginyu or Galactic Emperor, which is a huge, huge bonus. And again, like I said, because you have the early beaters, great early game and mid game with this leader. My main problem with that though is because those cards fall off really hard, just like some of the Ginyu Force cards did in set 1. You have this situation where you might play 1 or 2 cards that don't really fit the situation, pawn them off with Freeze's effect and hope that, you draw into what you're really looking for and then just draw into more of the same. And that's a pretty big problem. As good as he is for consistency early for getting certain key cards, it can really backfire in the late game when you're really looking for those same key cards. In addition, since he's not blue and he's not self-harm, and like I said, you're primarily going heavy green, he can be exploited late game by better players. He really relies on having that 1 Tien or that 1 Furious Yell Vegeta in his hand to flip. And, if it gets Cold Bloodlusted or in the case of Tien, if it gets Jockoed, you can be really far behind, and that honestly just sucks. There's not really much you can do about it. It's one of the main reasons why I think Ginyu is a little bit better and why Ginyu is more popular. Consistency is key, especially in events like the ARGs that are coming up that are, 7, 8, 9 round tournaments. You don't want to be having, if you have like a 10% chance of just losing the game because you don't, the deck isn't performing, as well as it could be, that's going to come back to bite you. And that's one of the main reasons why I just don't think that he's as good as the other 2 yellow leaders, but he's definitely still strong enough, largely because of, yellow's broken support pool to actually win it all. So now let's move on to the good. And first we're going to talk about the, Ginyu here. I don't really feel like I need to say a lot about Tricolor Ginyu. It's been beaten to death at this point. What originally went as a deck that was largely unplayed in set 1 kind of exploded, and I would argue that it's probably the second, if not the most popular deck in the game. The thing is, right now, even though there's a lot of Ginyu players playing him as Tricolor, I don't really see a lot of people using him to his full potential and playing, optimally, so to speak. I see a lot of misplays, a lot of people, cramming cards into their decks because they see YouTubers playing those same cards without really understanding why they're in the deck. If you're gonna really try and go the Tricolor Ginyu route, I strongly encourage you to take a template and play it over and over and over again and refine it until it becomes something that is more tailored to your playstyle and what you think you're going to come up against. Because if you net deck, I guarantee you're just going to have a lot of issues. So moving on past Tricolor Ginyu, aggro Ginyu, like the true Ginyu Force deck, is a lot stronger this set. I actually think it is a tier 1 deck. The only issue I have with it is these 2 cards. These are the 2 cards that make the deck function. The problem is they're incredibly difficult to get. Dash pack promos were very easy to get in the first week or so of Union Force, but as time has gone on, no more are being open, and people are basically hoarding, at least near me, the copies that they already have. So for newer players, it's a little bit difficult to get the powerful Bond Ginyu, and then Ginyu Reliable Captain is obviously a Tournament Pack 2 promo, which, based on how much those are going for in the secondary market, and the random chance and the low quantity of them coming out, it might not be feasible for you to get 4 copies. But this deck is just really, really powerful. It's very similar to the Bobbity Black style lists, but I actually think it has an edge over that deck, whereas Bobbity Black is trying to drop 1 or 2 of the Rose Black followed by a Bobbity and then 2 finishers and kill you on turn 4. This is trying to play Ginyu the Reliable Captain, drop your entire hand, have your leader flipped, give him double strike, swing, combo with powerful Bond Ginyu Force, pump your whole board, and then just turn everything sideways and just kill them in one shot. And the reason why I think it's better is because of Battering Laser. Battering Laser is a 4 of in the main, and then basically no other extra cards to speak of except for maybe 1 or 2 Crusher Balls, 1 or 2 Cold Bloodlust based on your preference and the matchup. That's all you really need. The rest is just combo fodder. It's all 5k combos. You just kill them. It's so hard to stop because Battering Laser says, hey, you cannot, block any of these attacks. And it also says, hey, you can't Cold Bloodlust my Ginyu reliable captain. So it's going to resolve. As long as they have 4 or 5 energy open, they're going to flood the board. They're going to swing out for large amounts of damage. And unless you have a bunch of Sensu Beans in your hand, which is why I think blue is a very strong color because you can't do those kind of things, this deck will overwhelm you and kill you very quickly. Beerus, Zamasu, Goku Black, that style of ramp deck dies to this in 4 turns. I know Beerus used to be a hard counter to this, but it cannot compete with the speed of this deck. And I'm very surprised that I don't see more people playing it. I saw somebody put up a second place finish in Florida with it. So good on them for actually recognizing that this is a real deck and it's very, very powerful. I don't usually play aggro in many card games, but if I did, this would be the deck that I would be playing. I think it is the best aggro list, aside from possibly blue-yellow Big Getty Star Trunks. So moving on past him, we will now finally talk about the last leader, which is Galactic Emperor Frieza. I honestly think that this might be the best yellow leader in the game, and it might even be the best leader in the entire game. He is so versatile. He does everything well except for one thing, and that's the reason why I prefer to still play Ginyu. But I can easily see Galactic Emperor winning ARGs. He's just so strong because of how many options he has. As a 3-color leader, you obviously have yellow, and you could basically pick any 2 of the other colors, and they all give you various different advantages. Red gives you incredibly aggressive and powerful bodies like Jiren and Kaba. Turn 1 Kaba into turn 2 Kaba with Galactic Emperor, very, very hard to deal with. Many decks in the game just instantly lose to it outright. There's not really any way to deal with it. And then Jiren is a great finisher. He can swing for obviously big damage against the face, but he keeps the board cleared, and unless they have hard removal, there's no way to get rid of it because he just untaps, he restands it at the end of each turn. And with Cold Bloodlust backing up, there isn't any real way you're getting these Jirens off the board. Speaking of other threats that are great that you can't get off the board, if you could decide to go a blue route, Whis Sacred Guard is incredible with this deck because it's a 20k beater. Yes, it doesn't have double strike, but there's literally no way to remove the card. It can only be removed by combat. You can't even use Gold Frieza, which is something you use to get around most. Can't be KO'd by battle effects. He literally cannot leave the battlefield at all due to effects. And he has blocker, so he's going to keep you protected. There isn't really any way to punch through Whis. So that combo alone is just incredibly powerful, and if you marry it with red, you'll get the firepower needed to get the job done. If you decide to go, say, a blue-green list like the normal tricolor Ginyu, you have access to Whis Sacred Guard, and then you have access to, again, more powerful blocker combos with Android 16. He can actually swing for damage and still keep his ridiculous defense up. Piccolo is another great card because he shuts down most of the other yellow control decks by limiting their hand size. Cold Bloodlust again says, hey, you cannot kill this card. It's going to, do its purpose. It's going to lock you at a 6-card hand. And then again, you can actually just go aggressive with it and restand with Galactic Emperor. It just so powerful. So many great cards already in green. Taking away the few weaknesses that 16 and Piccolo actually have by marrying it with Cold Bloodlust and the activate at the end of the turn, just absolutely broken. He's just, I cannot say enough good things about Galactic Emperor. No matter what you put in him, he is just going to dominate because he takes away one of the few weaknesses of the thing. Just having Cold Bloodlust says you can't kill it by, playing card effects. So the only way normally you could kill it is by battle, and the leader itself just shuts that off. Basically, most of your guys are almost indestructible. It's just ridiculous. The only problem with Galactic Emperor is that he is super reliant on flip cards because he can't self-harm like Ginyu. That's like his major drawback. He's got to be playing his deck with certain cards. I think playing the green, red, yellow is probably the way to go because Kaba is the one with the least amount of weaknesses because he comes out early enough where people aren't going to cold bloodlust or crusher ball him, which by the way, actually I shouldn't say not even at all because crusher ball doesn't even work against this deck, which is another great reason why the leader I think is arguably the best leader in the game. Yeah, Kaba is just great. It's hard to shut him down, and if they actually are wasting resources to shut it down, they did it for a one drop, not your major finishers, which is great. Results of the training is my personal pick for flips, but it comes at a price of not really being able to play the most optimal version of the list because I think it is red, yellow, green. Playing blue kind of gives you access to Sensu Beam, but some weaker options. But results is definitely the best simply just because you can't stop it. It's a little bit slower, but you can't stop it. And Tien is my least favorite of the options because he can be cold bloodlusted, he's really useless late game, and he can be jockoed. But, you know, every leader has to have some kind of drawback, and his being literally the same drawback that 90% of the leaders in the game have isn't so much of a drawback. I encourage you to actually practice and play with Galactic Emperor. He's just absolutely great. I can't speak, any more highly of him than I feel like than I already have. I think he is the best yellow leader, and as time goes on, and the card pool expands a little bit more to have more cards that can help you flip like results of the training, which they really do need to do. Just as long as there are more ways to flip Frieza reliably without actually hurting the card quality of your deck, his value is just going to keep going up. In set 3 or 4, we might forget about Ginyu control entirely, and it might just be Galactic Emperor is the new tricolor control leader. Alright, and that does it for me this time, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a comment, and let me know how I'm doing. I'm off to ARG Hartford this weekend, so wish me luck. Hopefully I'll do well. I'd like to get a day 2 performance, but anybody who knows me from Naruto knows I have a terrible track record of just barely missing the top cut. It happened in ARG Atlantic City. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened here again. I will be bringing some sort of coverage for sure about the event. And lastly, next week I'm going to do a primer on how to draft with the new draft set coming out. I feel like a lot of people coming from other games that don't actually have a draft format don't understand how drafting works and draft strategies and figuring out what colors you're in and whatnot. So hopefully that'll help you guys out who are newer to the limited style of format, which is personally my favorite style of format in any card game. I think it is a lot better than constructed. It tests a lot of different skills as a player. It's a great metric for figuring out how good a player is, and I'm hoping regionals and other events in the future will actually do a split where it's half draft, half constructed, because it's a true test of how good you actually are as a player. Alright guys, that's it for me, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.